Awesome. So, welcome to Evolve Fest 2020. We are in our next panel, which is about protesting for healing. Protesting for healing, right? So, a lot of times we hear the word protest and automatically it goes to people standing on the street, holding up signs and screaming. And of course, with the year 2020, there has been so much happening for Black lives that it has been Black Lives Matter all 2020. And beyond just Black lives, Indigenous lives 2020, because a lot of horrible events have been occurring with Indigenous land. A lot of their land has been taken. I recently saw a news report this morning about Oklahoma. They're dealing with some issues in their native tribes and them possibly losing their land for 38 tribes, you guys. 38 tribes could possibly lose their land because of a document that the Trump administration has signed. And so, with that being said, I have some amazing panelists here who are active in the community, who are engaged, and who can give us some honest insight on protesting and how it's a healing mechanism more than just a political mechanism. So, first, I would like to introduce Chris. He is a photographer as well as an activist here in Chicago. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, so well, first shouts to Charmin for even having me for this. I think me and Charmin have known each other for like 50 years now. You know what I'm saying?
Right?
Shouts to Charmin. But yeah, my name is Chris. Some may know me as Thought Poet. I'm an organizer, writer, and photographer. I do a lot of organizing with Black Youth Project 100, which is an organization that organizes with a Black feminist lens. So that means that, yes, we're trying to abolish police. We're trying to, rectify, community violence, but we're also doing it uplifting Black femme, trans, and non-binary folks because their lives have been taken actually more than others. And so, outside of that, I'm just Southside dude trying to, make stuff happen, really. So.
And we also have owner of the Scentuary, Miss Robin. She's an aromatherapist and life coach. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do and who you are?
Yes, as you said, I'm Robin. A lot of people call me Rob. I'm a mom, I'm a grandmother, I'm a published author, I'm a community builder, I'm a Tuskegee alumnus. My degree was in construction, so I used to build buildings and railway lines and airports and all that. And got diagnosed with lupus in 2003 and decided that I needed to change my life. I needed to simplify my life. And so I got on that Dr. Sebi food list, healed myself, co-created, and basically I've been healthy ever since. I'm not on medication regularly, so I'm a lupus survivor, I would say. And since 2005, I've been basically a holistic Africana culturalist at the Scentuary, and I do events. I help curate events and share information with people in the community on how to heal and promote health, wellness, happiness, freedom, and perfect self-expression.
So let's dive right into it. Evolve Fest this year, our theme is surviving a pandemic. And for some people, a pandemic may simply be that COVID-19 is spreading and it's spreading at a rate that's uncontrolled. Or for some people, the pandemic has been, man, I lost my job and I don't know what I'm going to do. But for us as Black and brown people, this pandemic has been, our lives are at stake. Like literally our survival is at stake at this point, not just our physical health, but our mental health, literally seeing videos and images of Black and brown people dying in the hands of people who are hired to protect us. And not only seeing those images, but to go for months at a time with no justice, no form of reconciliation, no form of apologies even, and This past week, we witnessed how the Breonna Taylor case has currently been going, and the police officers still have yet to be charged for the murder of Breonna Taylor, you know? So let's start with the pandemic. How are you guys feeling, first of all, before we dive into the healing aspects of all of this? How are you guys healing, and how have you been dealing with Black Lives Matter in this pandemic? Anyone can start.
Okay, well, I would say, since I have lupus, the pandemic has made me um, continue a pattern of self-care. Um, I've tried to do those things that keep me stress-free. I've tried to have a highly alkalizing diet to help my body fight off whatever, Corona or whatever. And I don't know. I just think that, I didn't really fully close my business. I thought about that, but then people were kind of like, yo, I need my oils, I need this, I need that. You're essential, boo-boo. You need to be up in your space. And so I decided, well, I'll open on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for 2 to 3 hours a day, and that I would utilize my online sale. And so, in reference to like me personally, that's what I've been doing because I also needed to kind of be cautiously aware because I had an underlying health condition and I didn't want to get sick. But in reference to like our communities, I don't know. I think the pandemic really highlights the overall health disparities. I think that it highlights access issues with medical care, food security, lack of services in our community. Um, I just think the pandemic brought a lot of stuff to light in reference to how racism has impacted our community to some extent to get
Yes.
the things that we need. Okay.
Yes. Yes. And how about you, Chris?
Um, hmm. So, before quarantine started, I was actually working at Hebrew Brentley's in Evermore Park. And yeah, for me that was kind of dope just because Hebrew Brentley, he's a well-known artist, but he's also his work is based off of the Tuskegee Airmen. And so, it was really dope, creating curriculum, trying to get Black and brown schools to come and see his artwork. And then quarantine happened. And so, unfortunately they had to close the gallery down. And so I think mentally I was already in an interesting space because I live in West Inglewood. And so, I didn't necessarily see the, no toilet paper in any stores thing. Like, I would right up the street to the gas station because, white people don't come to my side of the town. And, I was able to get some toilet paper. You feel me? It wasn't really that big of a deal. I think for me, when the uprise started again, because again, I was also a part of a lot of the protests or whatnot that happened 5 years ago when Laquan McDonald video dropped and the verdict was reached and stuff like that. So I was also one of the folks that were out there when the George Floyd situation took place, and I was also beaten by police and arrested, the next day, this past summer. So for me, it's been a very interesting, like, I guess, dance trying to figure out what healing looks like while also trying to kind of let an entire like government official know that what they're doing to this city is not helping. Just, and I don't know how familiar you are with numbers when it comes to like the budget for the city, but $2 billion have been spent on police since the beginning of 2020. You know what I'm saying? So, when you got the mayor dressing up like Hamburglar and making a joke out of, a 15-year-old girl getting her teeth knocked out by police.
Yes.
So
That's not cool.
You know what I'm saying? So, you know, mental health wise, it's just it's definitely been interesting learning how rest is a form of resistance, especially for Black and brown folks, just because we already push ourselves so much already. And so, you know, if you don't have the privilege of working from home, you're probably doing something that involves you putting yourself at risk. And, you know, we're about to go into not only flu season, but potentially another quarantine. You know what I'm saying? So I think just for me, really getting into music, you know, doing my photography as much as humanly possible. But also like when I say music, more so like learning or like, you know, going back into like, I guess history and like learning about like the 5 boroughs of hip hop and learning how hip hop and organizing are so like heavily connected. And how mental health has never been like, you know, centered in either like Black history as far as like civil rights organizing or in, you know, like music. But we're trying to do that now. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So yeah, to sum up my answer, it's been a very thorough 360 metamorphosis for myself personally. But I am grateful and I am thankful for the space that I'm in right now. So.
Now, you mentioned a few things that I really want to tap into. One was the police budget. So a lot of people don't know that the city of Chicago actually allows citizens to voice their opinion on the budget. And they put out a survey this year asking, where should the budget go? And like you mentioned, 2 trillion or 2 billion? What you said, 2 trillion?
No, $2 billion.
$2 billion, right? So $2 billion just in Chicago, mind you. We are not talking about the whole United States. We are talking about one city in 50 states, right? Where $2 billion have gone. Yet a lot of students do not have computers and tablets for their classes this fall. A lot of families have not been able to sustain themselves through this pandemic because a lot of people work, you know, paycheck to paycheck. So once the job stops, the money stops, right? And this has led people to quote unquote loot or take things from their stores in their neighborhoods. And of course, naturally, it got to the level where our mayor started to block and barricade our city, right? And Chris, I know specifically you were one of the many people who were downtown when all of this occurred. And a lot of people were just like, yo, you can spend more money to block a city where people are working instead of actually just listening to what the people are saying. Like literally, you guys were not being violent. Nobody was looting at this moment. Everybody was peacefully protesting. And it went from a peaceful protest to almost a war in a sense in the street because the mayor just wasn't listening, right? So I would love both of you all perspective because Ms. Robin, thankfully your store was not touched, but the stores next to yours were. So I would love, you know, to hear you guys' perspectives on that. How can a city care more about basically a building than our voices? How do you guys feel about that?
Well, I think politicians are driven by voters, okay, and dollars. And as we can tell, even with this sorry presidential election, that, you know, it's all about the budget, the dollars, and, you know, how they can utilize those things to, I don't want to say control populations. Okay. I think Chicago is it's a hard city already. And so I think that Black folks, I'm not really dealing with like brown, I guess Black and brown folks have been without for so long that sometimes I don't even think people are sure what to ask for. And then when they finally do decide what they want to ask for and they ask for it, people don't take them seriously. And then after they've exhausted all the means and methods of trying to be professional, like courteous, orderly, and in the courts, they realize they got to give people that work, okay? Because they don't understand, they don't respect the voice, the attention that's necessary to combat a lot of the stuff that's going on in the city. One of the things that I observed when all the uprisings were going on is that you securing downtown.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
We have communities. Even though we did have some situations in the communities, I'm glad people took some lessons out of some history books, and they decided, more people than not, decided they weren't going to actually tear up their own communities, and that they were going to let their frustrations be shown in other areas, because the reality is downtown is beautiful because they took TIF dollars out of our communities.
Exactly.
And they ported the TIF dollars downtown.
Exactly.
Everybody was laughing and it was oh ha ha, but now it ain't funny. It's not funny. Now you get to see how people have to live on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And it's just I mean, I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. And I felt that it was a huge disparity of justice and fairness. And quite honestly, I was really disappointed that the mayor listened to people who told her to protect other people and property versus protecting the citizens of the city in general.
Yeah.
I felt.
And Chris, would you like to share your thoughts? Because like Ms. Robin said, yeah, people disrupted our communities and neighborhoods, but downtown was definitely the target for sure, So Chris, do you want to give any insight on your perspective, being that you were physically down there and you got to actually see what was happening in real time?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll put it to you like this. We said before, when we went to actually, because I actually was at the very, very beginning of the protest that started downtown the day, like the first day of Chicago protests, like this past summer. So the goal was never to be violent. The goal was never to, loot. The goal was never to riot. The goal was never to do any of that. The goal was to take up space and bring awareness around what happened to George Floyd. That was the goal. And so, mind you, we were doing a car caravan, just because at this point, this was kind of what woke everyone up, because before then there was just a quarantine. So like downtown was completely empty, just because there had not been anyone really out doing anything, even downtown. So, there were traffic jams everywhere because the police had actually gotten wind of that we were even coming to protest downtown. So they were already barricading things in the very beginning of the protest. And that's what folks did not know, is that the police were already downtown waiting on us. So throughout the entire city, and I do mean the entire city, like from the lakefront to the Thompson Center to the bridge to the Trump Tower, like the entire city was just like folks trying to navigate through the city because police were barricading us. So when it came down to the situation you're talking about, as far as with the bridges being lifted, that started because at this point, we were trying to peacefully assemble in one space. That did not happen. They did not let us do that. And so we were eventually pushed to the bridge where the Trump Towers were. Like, that wasn't our intention. Like, that was what we were pushed to. So again, folks thought that we were going to destroy the Trump Tower. And the thing is, the looting that took place, one, it did not start by young folks. It didn't start by any black or brown bodies. It started by specific white folks that were already like on BS in the first place. So like when folks are talking about the cars that were on fire and like stores that were like, you know, like garbage cans like thrown through them, that started from specific white folks that were like doing that stuff. Like they had like canisters of gas and like, you know, they had stuff prepared to like mess stuff up. And, you know, kids, you know, and I mean, it was kind of like a chain reaction, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, the interesting thing is that folks knew that Lightfoot had put police in, like specifically in front of the Trump Tower to protect the Trump Tower. So when we got pepper spray and we got the crap beat out of us on the bridge, like people knew that's what she did. So when that scandal came out about Donald Trump's son sending her text messages stating specifically that he was like thanking her that she protected the tower, like no one was like, it was like people were surprised, but then people weren't surprised. You know what I'm saying? It was just like extremely interesting from that. And like I said, my position in a lot of what's been going on is that you know, folks feel like black and brown people were suffering, but like you just said, like money from our tax dollars and stuff like that was taken to repair what was already destroyed downtown. Like I live right up the street from a corner store that was like burnt down. Like a barbershop right down the street from there was burnt down. You know what I'm saying? And it still hasn't been fixed. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's definitely just been a lot to take in when it comes to any of that and how that took place.
So this reminds me of Bloody Sunday. And the reason I say that, in the civil rights history in Salem, when Martin Luther King marched, and it became a national thing to where it was on every newspaper, it was on all of, you know, the networks. And so when it comes to Chicago specifically, we've been in the news a lot. You know, we've been in the news a lot about protesting, and yet nobody's ever focused on the purpose and the topic. It keeps going back to, oh, they're destroying, you know, this, and they're doing this and that. But it's like the whole point of this is we are suffering and our city has the money to change it, right? And so, Chris, you mentioned how you were attacked by the police, and a lot of other people who are attacked and who are put in jail because of literally their First Amendment right? Like we all have the power and the legal right to say, hey, government, we're not appreciating the mistreatment of us. So as people who are active in the community and people who are active in teaching and training, what does this do to the mental state of an American, right? I would definitely love to know, if you want to share, mentally, how does this affect you? Because I know for me personally, I deal with depression already. And it made me write more music because it was like, yo, I as a musician, I'm not just about to be on stage singing to y'all. We need healing. We need peace. And even with shows, like I was glad there were no shows happening. And instead, I took the time to have community events and just community healing events, because I'm like, yo, the community is suffering right now. Nobody's listening to them. Nobody's taking a chance to like hear how people feel. And this is why everybody's reacting the way that they are. So for you all as leaders, how does this affect your mental health when you're doing it the right way, right? You're doing it the legal way, and still nothing is being heard. You're muted, Miss Robin.
Yeah. I'm not really sure if there is a quote unquote right way, because we're all individuals. So we have different triggers. We have different things that, make us depressed or feel lonely or whatever. So I think that what we have to do is like identify the things that are impacting us, and try to create ways. I always say co-create ways, because when we create, we're creating with the Most High. We're creating with the strength and the knowledge that, I am a mini universe. Whatever is of God is of me. And so, I just really think that getting, rest, um, beautifying your environment, whatever that is to you, and staying connected to people that you love and things that you love to do. I really think that part of the goal with social distancing was to separate people. And, like Malcolm X said, one person got a cold, we got pneumonia. We extra, Africanize everything. We always on extra. So we know how to be without a lot of situations. And we co-create. I know people who started businesses and, all kinds of things during the pandemic. It is real that a lot of people were facing like depression and even suicidal tendencies. But that gets back to checking on people, and staying connected, even though you may not physically see the person. Gotta reach out and touch, use your cell phone. And that's what cell phones are for, right? And so, FaceTime and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I really think that the goal was to separate people. I think in our community, with all the stuff that has been going on, I think it's nation time. And I think people recognize that we need to get a program, because the reality is this is a Democrat and Republican fight, and that's a political thing. We were doing Black Wall Street and a whole bunch of other stuff and couldn't vote, couldn't share facilities. We had banks, we had schools, we had hospitals and all the stuff that we needed, and we were segregated. We could not vote. So I think we got to go back to what grandma did, we got to get to that to that space where we're back on things that are like traditionally ours, things that we do when things aren't good. We sing songs, we know how to do things. We've just taken on values that don't even make sense to us sometimes. That's part of the reason why we're having some problems with the coping factors. So I just say people have to identify those things that they enjoy. Reach out for people you really enjoy, okay? And connect with all of that. Make a wish list and write down the things that you want to do, your bucket list, okay? And start figuring out how you're gonna do some of those things. Keeping ourselves busy, keeping ourselves focused on something positive, and really looking beyond the pandemic. Because like I say, for us, I don't want to say every day is a pandemic, but look, people got stuff going on.
Right?
So,
And you mentioned a great point.
Community.
You mentioned a great point of Black Wall Street, creating space for yourself. And Chris even mentioned that creating space for yourself. That's been something that Black people have done and Indigenous people have done since America has been America. We've been creating space. But now the request has been, we've made the space and y'all came over here and interrupted the space. You're not allowing us to enjoy the peace of our space. And so what is the common misconception about protesting? Because a lot of people think protest means I'm standing on the street. But Ms. Robin, I know you specifically, your version of protest is providing those safe spaces. You have a racial healing circle. And Chris, you're more than welcome to chime in as well, if you want, and talking about the breathing room or some other safe spaces that you've participated in. But let's talk about that, safe spaces. You know, safe spaces are a form of protest, right? Because we don't have them. We don't financially have them, meaning the city of Chicago are not funding our safe spaces. These are things that community builders are making and creating for us to ensure that we are feeling comfortable, to ensure that we are mentally healing, right? Um, and crazy enough, our Mayor Lightfoot, literally just did a press conference this morning, this Tuesday morning. You know, our mayor did a press conference Tuesday morning saying that she's going to be increasing mental health resources. We don't know what that looks like yet. But for now, for you guys, what is those safe spaces? Tell us how we're cultivating them. Tell us how we're changing that dynamic with these safe spaces.
Well, I think a lot of the things that we do at the Scentuary is already to promote health, wellness, happiness, freedom, and perfect self-expression. And according to NAMI, those are the appropriate things that you need for mental health. I know that we curated an event that Strawberry Red Entertainment facilitated at Scentuary, where we gave people an opportunity to do an art therapy type of project. And we drew all up and down this half of the block on 71st and Paxton. You know, we've had a number of events where people have the opportunity to express and create, so that they are making their space, because self-expression is important. You know, artful expression is important, and it comes in so many different forms. But the main thing is that you want to let people know that you hear them, that their voice means something, that we're bringing attention to things that people tried to solve in other ways. I mean, I don't even know how many times to say, like, giving people that work because they're not being heard. They're not, allowing people's comments and concerns to get to the forefront. So, we had like various kinds of events that we've curated during the COVID, to help people bond, move past this social distancing thing, remind each other that we have common unity, because that's when you put common and unity together, you get community. And so, those are the kinds of things that, we've been doing in reference to COVID. Just me personally, I'm trying to expand and create a movement center and trying to give people other kinds of spaces and ways and means to be able to energize themselves and reinvigorate the conscious connection that that we all need to be able to just kind of be okay, So yeah.
And then for you, Chris, can you talk a little bit more about safe spaces that you are creating for protesters? Because like I said, protesting, people who are physically on the front line, physically standing outside, standing in the midst of all that is going on. Can you talk a little bit more about the safe spaces for protesters?
So I guess the best way to say that is when I was after I was arrested earlier this summer, I also had another situation where I was almost arrested again and pepper sprayed at an action downtown. And I think that was the one thing that really kind of put things in perspective for me was Black and brown bodies on the front line being injured is something that's very common. And I think what the mayor of the city did was just show that the same way she doesn't care about the lives of folks that are going to share their voice in the streets is the same way she doesn't care about Black and brown communities in this city. I really feel like there was no difference. And so I know myself and several other people, we've been working on a lot of initiatives to try and keep folks safe. Whether they're protesting or whether they've been arrested. So like, having resources when you are getting out of jail to, reach out to family or, just reach out to someone in general, because most folks that, are held or arrested or just arrested in general wrongfully, when they are released from prison, 9 times out of 10, they don't have any resources to even, get on the bus or go home or call an Uber home. And a lot of the times they don't have a phone, and prisons don't give them access to a phone before they're released. So 9 times out of 10, folks, especially in these quarantine moments, are really like crappy situations. And so, we've been working on initiatives to help folks like that. So like, if you unfortunately are arrested by police, you'll have the ability to have your phone call. You'll have the ability to, safely somehow social distance while being in prison. Because when I was arrested, I wasn't given any of those things. And so on top of that, as far as creating a safe space, it's also important for me to say how media-wise, we've been trying to create different initiatives for basically controlling our own narratives. Just because most folks that have been keeping up with anything related to what's been going on believe that protesters are actually, harming police officers at protests. But what I don't think most folks are understanding is that police are actually causing more cases of corona or COVID than protesters. One, because police 99% of the time when they come to protest do not wear face masks. They use harsh forces like pepper spray. So it'll be literally like cold like it is now, or it'll just be COVID like in general, and they're doing things that put folks in more danger of catching COVID than what it was before. So we're trying to create more narratives where we're letting it be known what it is that we're doing and what it is that we're standing for, and that's to abolish the police. That is to put the monies that have been created for the police into different components and all components of the city's budget. So what would be replacing those police would be different entities that are centered more around mental health, that are centered more around building up community, creating more like programs, like trade programs, putting more funds into programs, just as Miss Robin. So instead of her looking for grants and looking for ways of having money, you literally have almost a 5 to 10 year budget just off of 5% of the money that will be taken and put into the community from the police being abolished. And I think that's like, in doing that is a tiring process, because you do have to continue to take up space and create space that is safe for folks. Just this past weekend, I helped facilitate a space where we were uplifting folks like Miguel Vega, who was actually shot and killed by police in Pilsen. And so we were uplifting folks that have died from either COVID or community violence or police violence. Because again, all of these things lead back to systematic oppression, which also leads back to the police in general, which is why they need to be abolished. But as far as creating spaces, I know that's been a couple of things we've been trying to do. And I mean, that in itself is a thing, just because a lot of the organizers that are at the forefront right now, majority of them are displaced. A lot of them are homeless. A lot of them have had their food stamps and health insurance shut off, just in general. And so, we're trying to create, again, different type of initiatives where like those folks that are like creating GoFundMes, like we can like share that to different like networks where folks can like, donate to specifically these organizers that are out here, trying to make a difference.
Now you
So
mentioned
yeah, I mean, and yeah.
you mentioned defund the police,
Mhm.
and I know what that means, but for the general public, like you mentioned, the media is making it seem like, oh, defund the police, we're trying to abolish the police, we're trying to take jobs from these people. And again, we're spending $2 billion on a position where people are being killed. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so when I hear defund the police, and based off the action plan that was put in place by the protesters and by, is it BYP Chicago that put it together?
Yeah.
BYP Chicago put together a really great phase out plan, basically mapping out what it would possibly look like in our community if we re-looked at the funds. Instead of saying defund the police, relocate the funding into better circumstances that can help our communities. For example, mental health. A lot of the calls that police get specifically in Chicago, some of them are just mental health issues that have nothing to do with violence, that have nothing to do with a robbery or fire, or any of those things. Yet we're not bringing mental health professionals in, you know? And so now we have staff of mental health professionals who are not working, who are not getting paid as much, but you're giving trillions of dollars to a force that is not, I can't say because I'm not a police officer, I don't know what their training looks like, but from what is being told to us, they're not being trained properly in mental health services, because that's not their job. You know what I'm saying? Their job is to serve and protect and to abide the civil laws, right? So breaking down defunding the police, can you explain for people who don't know the phase out plan what defunding the police is supposed to look like and the potential of how it actually can make the community better?
Yeah. So I mean, the best way to answer that is think about, any type of institution that exists, um, that has funds that are put into it, right? And you want to create another institution or another foundation of institutions that better serve what you need, and you want to take away from the other one. And that's basically what you would do. Like you would, year by year, month by month, however that would look, you would start allocating funds away from one budget and put into another budget, right? So kind of what you were just talking about. I mean, there are numerous things that are categories for the Chicago budget. So, like you said, mental health. When it comes to like programming, when it comes to grants, stuff like that. All of these things exist in the Chicago budget. And so as of right now, police receive, I believe, between 30 to about 50% of the Chicago budget for it to actually function. Now, mind you, I don't know exactly like total what a Chicago budget looks like and how it's sectioned off or anything like that. But like you've already stated, $2 billion have been, and we're at the fact now where Lightfoot says we're actually in debt. Like we're like 1.8 something $billion in debt. But again, $2 billion have been spent on policing since the beginning of 2020. So to answer that question, you have to think about so say for example, we'll use Ms. Robin's space as an example, right? So I give you a 5-year plan where every 6 months to a year, I'm giving potentially $500,000 to $2 million to her budget a year for 5 years, right? So like this is the budget from the police. You know what I'm saying? And for in that 5-year span, you have to report to me like the documentation of these funds going into your program. So whatever programs that you're offering, this is where your money is going to, right? And I don't even have to know who Miss Robin is. I just know because she's in this space that what she's doing is uplifting the community. I know within a 5-year period, the results of helping folks that either have mental health issues or cannot find employment or are lower level or lower class, whatever you call it, they will have actually benefited from that money being put into Ms. Robin's space for a 5-year period, right? That's how you defund the police, where you're basically taking money and slowly putting it into different spaces, so much so where the entire community that is around you is bustling, right? So think about the whitest and most put together neighborhood that you can think of. 9 times out of 10, they do not need police because there is nothing going on for them to need police. You see what I'm saying? Now they may have a top flight security guard, you know what I'm saying? Or they may have some type of, watch person in the community.
Community patrol.
You see what I'm saying? But it's like at the same time, if you take a park, if you take a Chicago Park District, right?
Yeah.
And you call it a community watch or patrol, whatever, right? And you put, again, $500,000 for a 5-year period into that Chicago Park District and into that community patrol program, there will be no need for police to exist, right? Because in almost every situation that the police are called for, they are not needed. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you don't need police to come and try to settle a domestic dispute if you have a community patrol that is actually folks that are trusted already in the community to actually talk to folks. You see what I'm saying? Versus bringing folks that actually have no idea about the community whatsoever and don't care to know.
And let's talk about that because I did attend a few protests, and one of the things, me and my friends were just talking about, even with the police that were in a surrounding areas around the protest, a lot of them were new. A lot of them were very, very young police officers, meaning they were in like their early 20s, late 20s. And let's be real, a lot of police officers aren't from Chicago, right? So like you mentioned, the media portrays Chicago, specifically places like where you stay, Inglewood, correct? Places like North Lawndale on the west side, places like, just a lot of neighborhoods on the south side of Chicago are specifically shown as overly violent, dangerous to live in, abandoned homes, abandoned businesses, right? And yet half of these things that they complain about our neighborhoods are literally things due to lack of funding, due to lack of education. And so if we don't have people properly teaching our youth, properly teaching job training, right? Properly providing spaces to give people opportunity to better themselves, how can you possibly expect their mental state to be in a good space? And so with this pandemic, one of the things that was really brought up when the looting occurred was the grocery stores, right? A lot of the grocery stores got looted. People couldn't get insulin because the Walgreens were torn up. So elders were, facing really scary issues as far as finding their medication. And again, nothing happened for like at least about 5 days from the city of Chicago as far as taking care of the issue, right? And so, Ms. Robin, you started a food box service where basically people can come and get food for free. No questions asked, just come through and grab food. So, Ms. Robin, you also have a book, that speaks on the importance of food and how it maintains a positive state of mind and health. So can you briefly talk about how important it is to provide food in the community, because food is a huge part, or poor nutrition, I should say, is a huge part of mental health issues as well. So can you talk a little bit about that, Ms. Robin?
Sure. So basically, I'm hotel, okay? Eat your medicine. This is how we lived before we got socialized and assimilated into thinking that somebody else's way of life was better. I think that we have had opportunities with people like Dr. Africa and Dr. Sabi and other holistic, Dr. Fulton, who was here in Chicago, who told us what to do, how to eat, and what was best for our bodies. So I think that one thing we have to do, we have to understand that, we're melanated people, And we have to look at the diets that are most appropriate for our melanated bodies. I think that our food boxes were primarily vegan, okay? And we had fruits and vegetables. It was donated by several different people, Urban Growers Collective, a lot of different people put those food boxes together. The USDA funded that program, and I'm glad it was able to last throughout the summer. We did it every Thursday from 12 to 2, and we gave out food boxes that I would say were easily valued at $40. Wouldn't you say that? Easily valued at $40.
Definitely,
Uh,
definitely.
right, right. And so being able to, we got to change the way we think, and we got to change the way we eat. Not trying to be on Tupac, but it's prolific. It's prolific, but it's not. You know what I'm saying? It's basic. We used to grow our own food. Um, you know, I always say, like, if we had to jump off tomorrow, a whole lot of us would be really, really jacked up right now. Okay, because it doesn't take a lot of money to buy healthy food. And I think that we have to set up programs for people so that they know how to eat, so that they can eat to live. As the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, you got to eat to live, okay? And fueling your body with garbage, giving your children Flamin' Hots and a Pepsi is not giving them the nutrients and the vitamins and the minerals that they need to be able to absorb whatever they need to absorb at school. It's not enough for an adult to be able to go through a day or a few hours even and be functional. You'll be functional, but you're not going to be as efficient. The levels of efficacy are going to be low, you'll be tired and stuff like that. So I mean, I really think that people have to look at the foods that work for them. And they have to probably, I think we probably have to go back to a more alkalizing diet, which is basically fruits, vegetables, no dairy. Do you know how many people have issues from dairy? And that convolutes your mind, and the mucus is forming around our bodies and our hearts, and a lot of disease, number one, starts in the colon, and number two, is centered around mucus. Dr. Sabi said that eons ago. I just read an article 2 years ago in the New England Journal of Medicine, like they discovered something talking about they feel like mucus is related to Alzheimer's and dementia. Boom, of course it is. All right, so I think we need some spaces in the community that, focus on healthy eating, healthy diet, exercise, breathing. Breath is life. Breathing, that helps with your and aids digestion. Drinking water. We have to drink more water. We have to drink more water so that we can flush the toxins out of our body, because toxins make us dizzy and, malaise, and, it's just not good for our digestive system, and a whole bunch of other things. So, that was one of the reasons that we decided to, give the food boxes out in the community. The other thing was helping people expand what they know about oils and herbs. Like, like I said, I went to Tuskegee. I got people that I went to college with who ain't never been to a doctor till it was time for them to go away to college. The only reason they went to the doctors because the university required they had some document stamped by a doctor. Okay? They ate foods and they had all these remedies and they had all these herbs and they were eating red dirt and all kinds of things from the earth, from Mother Earth, and our level of connection with the earth. We come from the earth. The DNA of plants are in everything. They're in us. So we could probably examine. It's nothing to examine. We need to do better. We need to do better. Um, we gotta repair ourselves. We keep waiting for people to repair us, but if you're not important to me, then your reparation on any level is not a priority. It's just not.
And that
So,
leads me to like our last question of the panel, which is after this, right? Because this pandemic has caused a lot of things that we're going to need healing from. We're going to need healing after this year, you know? So after this year, what does that look like? What does healing look like after this pandemic? If you guys even have a vision or thought.
I think healing looks kind of like rest. I feel that in some forms that may be vague, but I feel like dealing with trauma in any form, even if you're not at the front lines, is what folks have been dealing with. I want to say since quarantine, since the second uprising, as we're kind of calling it, I guess. But I definitely feel like healing, but healing in different ways that we haven't before. So, continuing to do organizing around defunding and abolishing police, but also realizing that internally community needs to be looked into, right? So, when people think about the concept of black on black crime or whatever like that, like that doesn't exist. You know what I'm saying? Like that's something that was created by systematic oppression. However, it's still something that we need to like deal with. So when we talk about how Black women lives are not truly centered and protected, and how, Black toxic masculinity, really puts Black women and Black trans women in danger. You know what I'm saying? Like when it comes to even being able to contribute back to the community, um, you know, abolishing and defunding police is important, but doing that work was a form of healing. You know what I'm saying? Because again, that's not going to be an overnight thing. And I mean, I feel like that's healing and that's work that can be worked on or even started on now. You know what I'm saying? So I know for myself, constantly trying to learn and unlearn what toxic masculinity is and how to not take up that much space as a Black cis hetero person. Like learning how not to project as a Black cis hetero man. You know what I'm saying? Like that's also important while also doing this work. And so, yeah, I would say those are forms of healing that we need to jump in front of, because even moving forward from this, as you said, like we still have, the fate of the world with this presidency. So even if, our worst like perspective doesn't win, we still have a worse perspective, which is Biden and Kamala, who are not necessarily for Black people. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, that's we are very much so in for some interesting days, but I think learning how to truly depend on community is what's gonna actually get us any further. So.
And Miss Robin, your final thought?
I keep forgetting I'm muted. Um, so I think we've had the benefit of being 50 years out from the civil rights movement. I think that 500 plus years is a long time to study oppression and disenfranchisement and injustice. And I think that there is an ideological and an intellectual component to this. And us being able to have our receipts in order, or we can prove that there are things that are going on to us that make us want to protest and why we protest. The other thing is, like, how does 13% of the population consistently stay the face of deadly diseases? Okay. So I think that we have to get the narrative right, like Chris said earlier. So that means that the human factor and the technology component is going to change. The thing that I hope that changes the most, two things. The king had a dream, but he also said we coming to get our check. Okay, I think we got to address reparations, and I think that's one thing that people are really, really pressed on right now is recognizing the economic impact in reference to our scenario. Okay, and I believe that's gonna change after the pandemic. And the other thing that I think is critical, that I feel like this is a spiritual cleansing going on right now. Like we are in the age of Aquarius, we're in the age of evolving, we're in the age of ascension, and we're using third dimensional tools. This is the time to get rid of things that are not serving us. This is the time to bring, yeah, this is the time to bring through the newness. I think that it has made a lot of people, particularly Black people, move more from religion to spirituality.
Yeah.
And we have a growing population of people that are doing ancestral work. And, prayer is asking, meditation is listening. People are listening to the ancestors. We moving their work forward for our future, right? We might benefit a little bit from it. Our children and our children's children's children. This is for them. This is so that, we're all going to benefit in that way. So I say, being that this is the age of Aquarius and we are ascension and evolving and awakening, it's not going to be the same again. It's just not. It's because too many people are being awakened, and they're not allowing themselves to be controlled by monies, by politics, by a whole lot of things that have typically had a grip on us. People are actually at their altars with their ancestors taking direction. We need divine intervention. We know that this thing is so much bigger than us, so much bigger than us. And I think the ancestors, they know we need them, and I think they're not going to let us down if we do their work. So I think we in the fifth dimension, it's going to be different. It's going to be different.
And with that being said, let's evolve and keep it going. So I want to thank you all. I want to thank you all for giving us information and giving us insight on the healing of protesting. Thank you all for the work that you all do in the community. And I pray that you all continue to stay safe, continue to stay healthy in your fight. And let's keep it going, you guys. Let's keep, manifesting and creating better spaces for all people and make room, because, evolve is happening. It's happening. Stay tuned. We got more panels coming. Yes, definitely. Okay. Stay tuned, you guys. More panels are coming up. Stay tuned. Peace.